Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Wanted from 2008. So, immediately a lot of people, when they come on here, they'll be like, oh, it's just the curved bullet movie, and that's all that really matters, right? I thoroughly love this film. I thoroughly enjoy this film to the point of me going on and saying, like, why, if I didn't put this movie on my top 10, why isn't it? I have seen this movie multiple times. I not only like the movie, but then I can also like the soundtrack because we have, of course, certain stuff that is to be involved in the soundtrack where you're going on and be like, yeah, like I can really understand this music. Because it seems that not only the movie is relatable, but also so is the music, where it's like, yeah, every day does feel like the exact same, and there's no way that you can go on and change anything or try to make it better. You're just trying to just like mow over another day and just kind of get it done and just go on to the next one and see what you can just try um, to tweak or be different or whatever from the previous day. So going into this movie, like we also have this movie that feels Matrix-ish in a way, uh, especially once we get to when Wesley is to go on and give up his job and then go into the textile mill and needing to, of course, be broken or rebuilt so they can go on and teach him and have him figure things out upon himself and be able to uh, seek the revenge that he, of course, is to be led to believe he needs to go on and do. I also like the twist and turn kind of thing that this movie goes into. For a lot of people that have never gone on and seen this movie and then are to watch it for the first time, you'll get that kind of like curve towards the end of this movie. But man, if you've never seen this movie, oh my god, it's so enjoyable. We have Chris Pratt in this movie, and it's like one of those early films that, of course, he was to get. Also, James McAvoy. You probably didn't really know much of James McAvoy until this film came out. Or some people probably went on and saw him in movies later, like First Class, or probably people didn't know who he really was till probably Split or Glass, which actually those two movies, Split and Glass, are probably like this one has to be my favorite James McAvoy film. But then I would turn around and probably like Split and Glass also. And people probably don't like those films also. I like, it is what it is. There's also another James McAvoy film that I would recommend to people, even though it's a weird and goofy film. I don't care. It's also just one of those where there's sometimes where it's like a fun cop movie at some points, where you go on and you have this one kid who is to kind of give this cop the finger, and so we have this cop who goes and takes a cigarette and pops this kid's balloon, and then gives him the double finger, and then walks away. Because it's like, I'm not going to take from you, kid. So, it's that kind of movie where it doesn't apologize for anything. So, yeah, James McAvoy in Filth was like a really interesting film. So, and it also is very aggressive in some points in parts and film and whatever. But, anyways, so going into this film, teeing it up, what is this movie about? What is the grading of this movie? I really have to say that this is a very epic film, and I don't say that all that often, because a lot of times I would just kind of do a lot of middle of the road kind of films. I thoroughly love this film, and if it had never gone on to me having this on a top 10 list, I think it feels to me to just have an injustice of me not having that on some top 10 list, because it should be, because I feel it's good enough. Um, and I don't care if, like, it's just a curved bullet movie. Like, how can you not like this movie? How can you not like Tenet, but you like this film? Well, because this story is more relatable than Tenet is. Uh, this story feels like it actually has a story, where Tenet just has effects, and that's it. There's nothing to just, like, we have a guy who just drops in a film, and we're just to, like, go on and just follow this character. But hey, for those of you that love Tenet, love Tenet. Freaking, I'm not gonna steal that away from you or justify that film. I could care less. Because there are people that just love that movie, and they just want to stubbornly love that movie. And I could probably just say that I haven't seen it in a very long time, and I just don't care to rewatch it. Just don't. I just don't think I ever will. Um, because I will just be seeing the film from one kind of way of things. So, this movie is epic. I'm not going to apologize for it. Because people, like, I think this is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, okay, that's your opinion. And there's some people that'll probably, for the first time, see this movie, be like, whoa, yeah, yeah, feel good kind of thing. So, teeing it up, what is this movie about? Where can you go and see this movie currently right now? Because right now it would go on and have goofy apps. You would probably have to go out of your way to find this. You'd probably have to rent this somewhere. By golly, you can go on to some Google searches and find some apps. You can go on and find some apps, and dare in fact go on to a thing called Letter C Movies. So a letter and then a word will go on and give you an app that you can download and be able to see whatever you want. You could also go on and go onto a Google search and search the word Fox HD Movies. You'll have a logo that'll say so, but a title that'll say something different. Uh, it'll eventually go on and say play 1080p HD movies, but really I would go on and just suggest just search the word Fox HD Movies. Like, I've done that quite a few times. To see on a Google search if I can find either one of those things, and eventually I can. So I would recommend it. You could also Google Play Store a app called TV Crush, and by golly, you'll be able to possibly be able to see any number of those apps, download any number of those things, or maybe you just have this movie in your collection and it's been a while. So recheck it out. Because without a doubt, I love this film. I'm not going to apologize. There have been some times where I've like, you know what, I don't know about my feeling about this film. I'm not going to be doing that for this one. No, I love this film. So with that said, let's go into this thing called that double five time territory. Teeing it up, what is this movie about? If I didn't mention it already, we have Leslie, who is to seemingly be having a number of problems with stress, possible panic attacks, and this character is to go on and have consistent things just like telling him, like, God, you are such a wuss. Like, why are you even here? Your best friend is banging your girlfriend and you're doing nothing about it. Correct? Incorrect? So we go on and have Wesley, who is to have it be that there is to have Wesley go to this pharmacy one day to get his subscription refilled, to all of a sudden have Angelina Jolie, played as Fox, go and appear to take out a guy named Cross, which Wesley will come to find out is to be the villain of this story. and he will have to go on and train hard enough to be able to take Cross out. And there, of course, is to be some twists and turns, let's just say, in this film, that is to go on and take Wesley to forcibly be put into this textile mill where he's to go and do this lavish and crazy training so he can go on and, which kind of feels Matrix-esque once we get to that part. Um, but then we will go on to figure out that Wesley is to be the one, and that he is going to be able to go up against Cross and possibly defeat him and find out what this big, interesting part of the rest of this movie is. When we go on, we have Wesley, who is to supposedly be put into this fraternity of assassins to go on and find out something interesting about guys like Sloan, guys like Fox, guys like the Repairman, and so on and so forth. Finding out a piece of the puzzle for these guys, so to speak. So, with that said, let's just go into that double 5-time territory. Let's just go into spoilers about this bad boy, because I think it's about that time to just go on and say it is spoiler time. It's about that time I get to spoil this movie. So, in the very beginning of this film, we of course have a guy named Mr. X, because I guess he doesn't have or have to need much more of a name than that. So, we have Mr. X that is to be going through this, of course, business building of sorts. And so Mr. X is to go on and speak with a girl named Pooja, or Pooja. I'm going to go with Pooja. Sounds weird, but it is what it is. So, we have, of course, Pooja kind of concerned with Mr. X being there, and Mr. X is just like, well, hey, if your name would have came up, you would already been dead. Don't be worried. So, all of a sudden, Mr. X is going on and looking at the building next to them, realizing that there is just a bunch of construction workers that, of course, are to be putting work to this building. And so Mr. X is just like, eh. So Mr. X is to go on and continue to talk with this girl named Pooja to find out that she is to have this red dot upon her forehead, much more so than her dot that is to already reside upon her forehead regardless. So, we go on, we have Mr. X realizing that this girl needs to get down, or otherwise she's going to get shot. So, we have, of course, this girl get assassinated. Mr. X is now going on and is to be running out of this room so he can go on and ding this elevator, so he can go on and from this elevator go and run as quickly as he possibly can, so much so that it's absurdly blowing a bunch of papers and like as if he's running like the Flash weirdly, or like Clark Kent from Smallville, where all of a sudden, whew, wait, things are just flying out of people's hands because he's running so quickly, weirdly enough. So, we go on and have Mr. X, who breaks through this big, massive chunk of glass so he can go on and go flying from one building to the next, going on and using his guns to fire upon these construction workers, and then make his way to land onto this other building where he can go on and try and take down this one last construction worker that Mr. X has to go through this one window to make his way all the way back up to this building to kill this one last guy. So, we have Mr. X that's going on, getting a phone call, talking to Cross, saying that, like, hey, you should have never left the fraternity, so on and so forth. And of course, we have it to where uh, where like Mr. X is just kind of like you shouldn't have sent these guys to go on and take me down. So, and plus also we have it to where Mr. X is telling Cross like he should have never left the fraternity. So we have Cross who's saying that all of those guys were just decoys. As we go on, we have Cross conveniently from his home going and shooting Mr. X from an absurd angle from this gun that is to be fired from his home. So the interesting thing is we kind of like showcase here how this guy was to get his like this bullet come from out of his head to, and then they like reverse the angle and they showcase the whole entire traveling of the pieces of the bullet, like re-putting latch back on and all this kind of goofy stuff to like replaying a certain moment. And I know that's like a goofy thing, but like I think that that is like a cool kind of effect. So, and a lot of people like, but Tenet, but like, anyways, Tenet did that a lot. Like, yeah, they did that a lot. Like, this movie doesn't do that all that often. It only does this effect twice. And this is numero one. So we go on and we are to transition and showcase Wesley. Wesley, of course, is to be this this account manager at, of course, this cubicle business thing, whichever. And so we, of course, are to showcase that Wesley is to be this guy who is to be taking a certain amount of medication for panic attacks and is to have this certain kind of keyboard so that way he doesn't do any repetitive stress like things. And we, of course, have it to where Wesley is to mention that he really does not care, or he just is to be really concerned that he does not care about anything. To the point of him going on and Google searching himself to get zero diddly worth of results. So we have Wesley, who is to immediately know, as we of course have Chris Pratt's character Barry supposedly going on and saying that he is to be doing dentist appointments, but it seems like he's going to be getting something fixed, and that'll really just be his whiffy stiffy, as he's to go on and bang a girl named Kathy consistently within this film. Showcasing that, of course, Wesley is to know about this, but there's nothing that he's going to do because there's nothing that he really can do because he wants to keep Kathy, but he's realizing that he's probably not going to satisfy her in the bedroom. So it's just kind of like, well, like, I guess it's just convenient that this girl is just to be there because I guess he just doesn't want to lose her. So even at one point we have Barry that goes on and is to like have both of these energy drinks and go and buy condoms that are going to be used for Wesley's girlfriend, and Wesley is forced to buy them because supposedly Gary is to mention like, oh, I forgot my wallet. I'm like, really, Barry? You son of a... Like, I bet the guy actually had his wallet. He had the money, but he just didn't want to pay. So we go on and we have, of course, Barry who's talking about the the rubbers, and they're saying, "Ooh, watermelon! Like girls love it." Like, really? Do they? Does it really matter what flavor it is? Cause who's gonna be doing any licking, so to speak? Maybe there's a after aroma. Or, I don't know. That seems weird. Why should it matter? So we go on in this story and have it where, of course, Wesley is to want to go and take out like $10, so that way he can just probably get a meal or probably get some kind of lunch and whatever. And we have him trying to take money out of the ATM, and of course it goes on and shows that he has insufficient funds, and that it goes on and says that of course this guy is to be like a wuss that knows all these things are going on and he's doing nothing about it. So Wesley also is to mention about his manager, or uh, uh, his his person that's kind of controlling everybody, named Janice. Supposedly she is to be anorexic, and she is to also go on and have a collection of donuts that everybody's to know about it. And it seems that Janice is to be having this birthday party at the office, and so we have Wesley that's saying that, man, the hardest work that I'm going to have to do all day is to try to be nice to Janice, because of course, like, everybody just hates this girl, and I guess in this office. And so when Wesley is to finally just feel like freedom, immediately the one thing that he is to finally just do is to just finally just say whatever he's ever wanted to say to Janice right to her face. Because Wesley is to go on and, of course, uh, trying to Google himself, and we have it to where Janice is so ticked off because Wesley didn't go on and do these bank reports, and so she starts like bickering about him and just starts putting a staple to his ear, and we have it to where it seems that Wesley is going on and having a panic attack, and we kind of have this slowed down where all of a sudden he's like, "I'm sorry," and then we go on and have Wesley, who's to be scrambling for his panic attack medication, and so we go on, and so Wesley, of course, is to go and get a refill for his panic medication, and so we, of course, go on and have Fox, who is to just appear like magic. All of a sudden, we have to Wesley is to apologize to Fox, and Fox is to tell Wesley, "You apologize too much," and he's like, "Well, I'm sorry about that." So Fox is going on and telling Wesley that that Wesley's father is dead. Sorry about that. But Wesley doesn't even know who his father is, so it's not like he's really mourning his loss here. And Fox is also telling Wesley that the guy who had killed him is to be in this store. So all of a sudden we go on and we have Fox, who is, of course, shooting this bullet at Cross, and Cross is countering it with a bullet of his own, and it just kind of goes, and they kind of smash bullets toward just like the firing of these bullets at some point just go nowhere. So we have Wesley being forced in this aisle, and all of a sudden Fox is to whip out this one gadget that is to take this gun and is to see past certain corners. And the interesting thing that I found about found out about this, besides the name of what gadget that Fox is using here, is that this gadget that she's using is actually a legitimate thing. That it actually does work. So that it's a thing that they actually use. So we have, of course, Fox that is to go and try and figure out a way to get to Wesley and or to get to Cross, I mean. But it seems that at every point in time, we have it to where Fox has to go and just kind of break these glass reflective things so Cross can't see where he can possibly shoot her at. So we are to force to have Fox and Wesley that are to get into this car, and Cross is to try and chase after them. And so we have, of course, Fox, who is in, I'm assuming this, is it a Mustang? Am I wrong about? I'm sure I'm wrong about that. I don't know about cars. So we, of course, have Fox, who is to drive on, and so we just have Wesley that's like, please go, 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 drive, drive. Like, you don't know how much I value my life. And we just have like Wesley that is just begging and pleading for Fox here, and I just find that just so like I just find that so much fun. Like I find this movie to just be like, man, when we have Wesley like at first just cowering in fear, to have him be forced to turn around and find this confidence in himself is just really cool. I love that part of the film where we get this character to uh, change from being one kind of person that is like please and thank youing everybody to just like so we have it where of course Fox is to go on Angelina Jolie is to figure out a way to have her car go flying because we have this kind of police that are to go on and try to blockade between both Fox and Cross. And so Fox is to figure out a way to fling her vehicle to where it is to go and hit this bus, have this bus topple over, and Fox be able to drive off of this bus to make it back onto the streets. And of course, by the time that the police even understand what the heck had just transpired here, all of a sudden we see Cross's vehicle without actually Cross in it, and it is to be some like weird, goofy cat vehicle that has all these like kind of cat uh, little bobbleheads and whatever in there. I guess that might be some like cat adoption uh, little truck thing. I don't know. I didn't read the exact specifics of this. So we go on and we have Wesley, who is to be brought in to, of course, be told who he actually is. So Wesley is to be, of course, told by Sloane that he is to have this ability that only his father was to have, and a number of other people that are to be here are to have, that they can go on and they can slow down a number of things to be able to best be able to shoot any number of things perfectly because they have the ability to just kind of like slow things down. So we of course have it where Sloane is to give Wesley this this forced task to do. I'm like, what is this, like Swordfish, where Hugh Jackman is getting a BJ from the one rando girl, and Hugh Jackman has to go and figure out this password and John Travolta's only giving him a number of seconds to figure this all out. And luckily, at the last ditch second, he does get it done while he's getting blown. And we have John Travolta that's like, oh my god, like this is the guy. So we have Wesley that is to be forced to need to shoot the wings off these flies. And so Wesley is, of course, having trouble doing so. So now we, of course, have the gunsmith who is to put a gun to Wesley's head, forcing him to trigger this ability. And so Wesley goes on and is like, there's no way I can shoot the wings off these flies. That's impossible. So the gunsmith is saying, hey, you have 3 seconds or I'm going to pull the trigger before you do. So Wesley goes on and is to have this ability to slow down time and shoot the flies off of all these bugs. And we now have Wesley that is to go and sit off to the side, realizing it's like, oh my god, like I almost died. So Sloan is to get all the bugs and to show this to Wesley that he did do this, the thing that Sloan was to tell him to do. And so now we, of course, have Sloan that, of course, tells Wesley, like, hey, like, you were born to be here, and you have gone on and like, waste your life and wasted away, kind of just doing what you were doing, and never actually reaching your kind of full potential, blah, 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 blah. So we, of course, have Wesley that turns this gun on Sloan, and so we have it to where Wesley's like, hey, none of you know who I am, and, like, you're telling me all this stuff, and, like, you really don't even know, you don't really even have a clue of who I really am. So we, of course, have Sloan who's saying it's so cool, hey, like, because Wesley's kind of turning guns on just a lot of people here, or turning his gun on a number of people, and Sloan is like, hey, well, you don't know who these people are either. Like, they're trained assassins, and, like, if you're gonna put the gun on anybody, like, keep the gun on me. Like, because they will kill you without hesitation. And so we have, of course, like, Sloan saying that Wesley has the potential to be another member of the fraternity of assassins, and that they will go on and trade over all of the things that, of course, were to be Wesley's father's, and that all of this stuff is very substantial. And so, if anything, it's like you'll get that out of this whole deal. So, let me take a second here. I'm gonna pause. All right. So, because Wesley is to go on and be in this one room, that he doesn't even realize that it's actually his father's room. And then so Wesley goes into this room and it is to, like, find this coat and realize, like, hey, this is my father's coat. And he's, like, feeling it, and he's like, yeah, like, I can probably figure out who I am by being in my father's room. Kind of getting to know who he is by just simply being in this room. And so that's the real attraction of Wesley coming to this place, because he doesn't really know who he is, and he'll eventually figure that out. So Wesley goes on and is to try and make it to work, try to get out some money out of this ATM, realizing that he has a couple of $1 million now in his bank account, where he's like, oh my god, like I might as well just take this money out before somebody decides to just take it back, or there might be a snafu at this bank or something. So Wesley goes to his work and decides, you know what, I don't need this job anymore. I got millions of dollars in the bank. What do I need to be here for? And so once Candace is to go on and realize that Wesley, of course, is to be effing off and just going on, and Wesley is trying to research his father, who, of course, is of course to be dead, as well as a number of other construction workers and so on and so forth, like the beginning of this film. Janice is to go on and ridicule Wesley for what he is to be looking up on his computer. And Janice is going on and on about Wesley's performance and how, like, a number of things like, oh, poor, this, poor, so on and so forth. So we have Janice just going on and just saying that Wesley will eventually be on review and all this other garbage. So Wesley just can't take it anymore. So it just gets to the point where Wesley is just telling Janice to shut the F up and is going on finally just telling her what everybody is to probably want to say, but they can't because they fear that their job is going to be in jeopardy if they do. Wesley's to tell Janice that no one likes her, and everybody knows that she has a donuts stash stacked away secretly, and that Janice does not need this stapler that she is to be clipping by everyone's ears to just be intimidating them. And Wesley goes and takes this stapler and breaks it, just chucks it up against this thing, and it breaks. And Wesley's to go on and continue to just berate Janice, and then once he is to finally be done with that berating, he goes on and takes his keyboard to go and see Barry, as Barry's like, oh my god, you're the man, as he goes on and has that line delivery throughout the rest of this film. And so we of course have Wesley that is to take his keyboard and is to smash this keyboard against Barry's face, having Barry lose a tooth. And of course those keyboard pieces are saying F you, which I found to be hilarious. I'm like, especially the first time around, god, this movie is to be just so fun. Even if it's to be a middle finger to whoever the viewer is or whatever, because that's the whole thing about these movies. It's supposed to be just defiant and whatever, but like, well, hey, like, what have you done lately, kind of thing. So we of course have Wesley that is to walk out of this office and is to go and find Fox is just kind of waiting there for Wesley to just kind of go on and like, okay, like I'm gonna chuck on these sunglasses and realize that they're like, what an awful thing to wear or try to wear, because I'm like way too big for those. So like those sunglasses are way too big. So Wesley's like, okay, like what are we gonna do next? Where do I go? What do we do? So Fox is to take Wesley to this textile facility or textile factory of sorts. So we of course have Wesley that is going and seeing Sloane and is wanting to ask him all of these questions, like, hey, is all this thing just a front? Like, what is this? Like, why are we are we putting together sweaters or are we killing people? Like, what are we doing here? And Sona's like, man, you got a lot of questions for. So we of course showcase to Wesley that this whole textile mill is to go on and figure out who are to be the people that are to be chosen by fate, supposedly, to get killed. That there is a bunch of ones and zeros that are to tell these guys who to assassinate, who to kill, who to go on and do next. But Wesley's also going to have to learn a number of things before he even gets to that point. So, at first, we of course have Wesley that's going on and meeting with the repairman. So, the repairman is going to be the guy that goes on and is to fix a number of things that Wesley has kind of just lacked. And really, like, this is the exact same spot in the Matrix where we have Neo who's getting all of these acupuncture like needles being put into his entire body because Morpheus is telling Neo, it's like, well, like you've never used any of these muscles before, and so they've atrophied, and so we're gonna try and like help you get these muscles to like work for you. So we have it like be the same thing here where the repairman is going and continuing to punch Wesley over and over and over again as Fox is going on and asking Wesley like, well, hey, like, why are you here? And Wesley's like, well, because you brought me here. And so the repairman is to throw a punch. And so we go on and have Wesley that is, of course, to take 4 punches and then night. So Wesley then transitions to go on and meet their chef, which is just called the Butcher. Man, do they have some complicated names, but it's nice to actually not have to be like so like, oh my god, I have to be like, I have to know this big lavish blah blah blah, blah kind of name. At least it's something easy to say. We also have at some point a character called the Exterminator, which of course we see him kind of feeding rats in the early thing of this, and we'll go on and find that this guy is to be the like an explosive expert, but it seems that he will go on and help Wesley kind of figure out what he's going to do really towards the end of this film. And we kind of feel like the end of this film kind of has like a Batman Returns kind of vibe to it, as far as like having this big master plan to go on and take out what he is to take out here, but we'll get there. So we have Wesley going and meeting with the Butcher, and so we have the Butcher is like, how many punches did it take for him to go down? And he's like 4. He's like, oh my god. So we have the Butcher that's going on and kind of pushing Wesley here, going on and telling him that's like, hey, now you're gonna learn. Excuse me. Now you're gonna learn melee. Now you're gonna have to learn to use knives. And because like you're gonna have to learn how to like fight, of course, close combat, and you're gonna have to fend for yourself and whatever. And so at first we have the Butcher who's kind of using the like one end of the knife that isn't sharp, and we of course have it to where like Wesley's kind of backing up, and the more and more that the Butcher is trying to get under Wesley's skin, we have it to where like the Butcher is like, well, hey, like, don't get snappy or I'm going to start using the business end, the actual knife end of things. So we go on, we have the Butcher who's more and more just beating the living and slicing and dicing up Wesley to force him to realize that he has to go on and figure out how to beat this guy, or he's going to get forced into consistently having to go into the recovery room to heal his wounds. So we also have at some point where Wesley is to get forced to get trained on one of these like textile machines. There is to be this one piece for him to go and grab this thing for him to be able to figure out how he can control his ability, his slowing down ability. He has to figure out how to grab this one piece to figure out how to be able to use this ability and be able to channel it. We also have the blacksmith that is going the gunsmith, who of course is common in this movie, and we have it where Wesley has to be comfortable with shooting actual people, and then we go on and we have Wesley that needs to learn how to actually curve the bullet. And so we have Wesley that is starting to get really good at shooting, but he still has this inability to now curve this bullet. After he has gone on and bested every single thing, even besting the repairman when the chair is to break and Wesley is to finally just beat the living out of the repairman. We go on and have the butcher where we finally have it to where Wesley is to get one on the butcher, as of course the very first time that we have Wesley and the butcher, having the butcher wanting to stab Wesley, or having Wesley wanting the butcher is to give Wesley this knife to showcase how this guy can get stabbed, and we consistently have it where Wesley is consistently going on and saying like, "Hey, that's sharp!" And we have the butcher's like, "Hey, come on, do it." So Wesley goes on and is to seemingly best everything to the point where all he really needs to do is be able to curve this bullet. Because we also have Fox that is going and chucking Wesley on this train and have him get used to having this balancing act while he's on this train. And the very first time Wesley is to go underneath this bridge, he of course ends up getting injured because he smacks into this bridge because this is a very tight position. So as we go on, and we of course have Fox's character that just kind of just bends over just easily to just get right underneath this spot. And so at some point they go on and they try to race to get to one little thing of tape, to where they're kind of like fighting over like this tape, and they're dragging one another over, and they're going on, and we have Wesley who is to jump over this bridge and is to fall right in front of Fox, where now they're like fighting it out and so on and so forth. So, but we also have moments where Wesley is to just get so frustrated that he continues to just get beaten the crap out of, and he's saying that all of this is BS, and that he is just getting so frustrated. And so we have at one point where Wesley is going on and talking to the Exterminator, and we have the Exterminator who is going and exploding one of these rats to showcase this explosion. And Wesley's like, well, hey, like, what do they do to you? Like, how crazy are you? Like, because all of this is just BS. And so Fox goes on and she's like, why am I here? Why am I training you? Like, why am I wasting this time? Like, why aren't you, like, more grateful that you're even here? So we have Fox who's just starting to beat the out of Wesley to figure out why he's really here. And of course, we get it to her. Wesley's like, I don't know who I am. And then Fox is like, what? He's like, I don't know who I am. So then we have this real breakthrough. And so we go and we have Wesley that is just breaking through everything after that. Is to figure out how to be able to do everything, to be able to curve the bullet, especially with Fox being in the way of this target. And so he is to be able to do all of it and is to finally go on and get this assignment to go and take a guy down who, of course, is to be uh, a guy who hopefully I can freaking find the name of, because that would be great. Let me pause here for 1 second. Robert Dean Darbin. Because, yeah, it wasn't even in IMDb. I had to go through and, like, go and Google search it and figure that out. So, we have a little bit of intel on this guy, and so it seems that this guy is to be consistently in this office, and that this train is to always be swooping by. And so Wesley at one point had to do these two things, which I'll rattle off now. We had Wesley who goes back to what is to be really just now Kathy's apartment, and he is to go back for his father's gun, because when he is to uh, like wake up next to Kathy, realizing that he's gonna go and just try and feed this cat with this Red Bull drink or whatever, this energy drink. And then Wesley goes on and is to like go and go to the bathroom, realizing that this gun had fallen out of his, uh, of course, coat or whatever. Goes on, it's like, wow, like I thought that was all just a dream, but I guess it was all real. So Wesley puts his gun in the toilet to then go back to Kathy's place and retrieves it. And Kathy's like, "Oh, is this your new like hoe now? Like you going on and paying for it?" As basically Kathy's going on with Barry, and Kathy just going on and berating Wesley, like, yeah, like Barry's my man now, and he does all these things you could have never done for me. As Fox goes on and kisses Wesley, and we again have Barry who goes on is like, yeah, like he's the man. So, and then we have Wesley that goes on and is to ask Fox if anybody has not uh, like pulled the trigger on somebody. And so Fox is to go on and tell this story that Fox was to have a guy who was to be this judge, and this daughter of his was going to follow in this guy's footsteps to be this judge. And so one day we of course have this judge that is going on and having this one man who is to be Max Petridge, who goes on and is to take this judge and is to tape him up and burn him alive and have the rest of his family watch. And he is to then go on and carve his name into all the other family members to remind them of he was the one who was to kill them. And Fox was to find out later that Max was supposed to be on some list to get killed, and somebody chickened out. So the whole mantra of every single one of these assassins is to kill one to save 1,000. And I'm like, man, that's that's really cool. We also had the moment at some point where like Angelina Jolie was going on and getting out of this tub, and she's like just kind of walking away, and I'm like, yeah, Angie, freaking. Interestingly enough, you would probably think that any number of those tattoos on, of course, Fox in this movie are actually fake. Actually, they're real, legitimate tattoos because someone went on and asked her about that when she was doing an interview for Wanted. She's like, "Oh no, like some of those tattoos are actually mine." Because weirdly enough, like I guess that question does come up, like, "Hey, do you have every single one of those?" But no, not all of them. But she has like some of them. Some of the back tattoos are actually hers. So we go on, and so Wesley is to chicken out, but then he is to go and curve this bullet to have this bullet go into Durbin's chest. And Fox is like, okay, you did it, good. So we of course now go on and have Wesley, who's like, you know what, I'm ready for Cross. As Sloane was to continue to tell him, it's like, well, like, I don't think you're ready yet. Like, let's just go on and just kind of wait things out, and so on and so forth. So we now have it where Cross is making his way to get to Wesley and try and kill him yet again. So Wesley is now, instead of just laying back and just kind of hoping to get saved here, Wesley's going on his own mission to go after Cross, chase after him, even to the point of him having to jump on top of a car to try and shoot at Crossmore, having Cross deflect these bullets. And so Cross, of course, is to run off here, and Wesley is to go after him. And so Wesley goes on and is to hear somebody from behind him. So Wesley goes and is to shoot, not realizing that it's actually the Exterminator who gets shot in the process. And we have the Exterminator that is telling Wesley, bullseye, because you basically killed him. So we start having it to where while Wesley is chasing after Cross, we of course start to see like the gunsmith. We start to see the repairman that is realizing where Cross is, and so they start chasing after him. And we have, of course, where the repairman asking like, "Hey, why is this guy here?" So we push on and have the gunsmith and the repairman trying to chase after Cross and trying to gun him down. And Cross is to go on and is to shoot Wesley in the arm, having him go into the recovery room to heal from this wound, which really all that does is to just have the bullet kind of going on and kind of making its way back from the entry of this wound. So Wesley pulls this bullet out to realize that this bullet is to actually be a traceable bullet, tracing him back to a guy named the son of Agela. No. Peckworski was to be Terrence Stamp. A lot of people will probably know him from Superman 2. Or probably like Yes Man for a lot of people that have seen that Jim Carrey movie at some point. So, but yeah, like I love Terrence. It's great. It's great seeing him in a bunch of films. I actually love it when he does comedy. I wish that he would gone on and done a lot more comedy because he always does. He mostly does a lot of serious roles. I liked him in Yes Man. It was actually funny to kind of have this guy with this kind of with this kind of voice going on and giving these jokes, which I thought was kind of really interesting. But Yes Man is actually a really good movie, anyways. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I'd probably go on and rewatch that. Even though I could probably tell everybody what goes on in that movie, anyways, because it's such a good movie. We of course have it be like the no man, no man thing, but then all of a sudden, Jim Carrey has to start saying yes to everything. Simple concept, right? So Wesley goes on and is to tell Sloane that this bullet is to be traceable and that maybe this is going to lead him back to Cross. So, while as we all are to realize that the exterminator is going to get exterminated here, and of course to have wounds that he cannot heal from within this recovery room. So we go on here and we have, of course, Wesley, who it's time for him to finally go after Cross here, as Sloane is to go on and give them the kill order. So I'm trying to think if there's anything that I had forgotten. There's a lot of tiny, minute details about this movie, which I love. But also going through and having to review it, like that's one thing where I'm like, oh my god, I feel like I've forgotten 6 bajillion things, because I feel like there's so many working pieces within this film. But I feel questionably confident because I feel like I've seen this film enough to like work around any number of problems that I would go on. Like, I don't know how to review something like this. Because there'd be some times where I'm like, I don't feel like I've seen this movie enough. I feel like I have to go on and like figure out how to freaking review it because I don't think I'm going to be able to review it at all. Uh, and try to justify all these things that go on in this film. So so now we go on here. So Wesley is to go and find where Peckworski is. And so we have Wesley that is to question Peckworski, and of course that is to lead Peckworski to say to Wesley, it's like, well, hey, like I can go on and arrange a meeting between you and Cross, and Wesley's like, great. So Wesley is going and having Peckworski be at this train station. And so we have Wesley who turns to Fox and, of course, is asking her, it's like, well, hey, have you ever, like, tried to just want to be, like, a normal person at some point? And Fox is just like, well, no. Because I think Fox is just so driven to go on and be this that she can't think about being anything else but that. So we have Peckworski that starts uh, running off, and so Fox is just so focused on her, of course, chasing after Peckworski, where Wesley is just like, dude, like this is gonna be a waste. I'm gonna go on and chase after Cross, which I assume is on this train. And so Fox is realizing that Wesley is doing that. So she instead decides to go and grab this one uh, car from these people that are unpacking their things. So Fox can go and chase after this train to go and ram her car into this train. And like it's a really cool spot when they get into this tunnel where this car is to be like shoved into this train more and more and more. So Wesley is going on through this train and just kind of having his gun out, and is to just kind of like push people's heads so you can kind of see who they are. So Wesley is going through this train, and so we have, of course, where Wesley and Cross are firing their guns, and we consistently have Cross who's trying to uh, like fire his gun perfectly to where, of course, it is to hit Wesley's bullets, so that way neither one of them can get killed here. So we even have a point where there's to be a number of people that are to be kind of standing in the way of things. So we go on and we have, of course, Fox, who is to kind of barrel her car into uh, this one train section as we go on and now have our characters just like fighting it out to then have it where uh, the train is to have parts of its cars start to just derail and disconnect, and we then go on and just have the one section that Fox, Wesley, and Cross are all on, just plummeting down uh, this one uh, kind of what is the perfect word here? Uh, like they're basically falling to their death within this train, being squeezed between two massive mountains or massive rocks. So we of course go on and have Wesley, before they were to go and kind of fall to their death technically here between these two rocks. Cross was going and grabbing onto Wesley to try to like help him get back into this train, and Wesley uses that to grab onto Cross and then shoots him in the chest and has Cross's momentum of getting shot here still grab Wesley and kind of pull him in. But we end up finding out that Cross was wanting to do that anyways, because Cross was to tell Wesley here that everything that the fraternity was to tell Wesley was a lie. That Mr. X was not Wesley's father, that Cross was actually his father. I'm like, what kind of Star Wars bullshit is that? Wesley should have been like, no, it's not true. It's impossible. Man, if we would have had, instead of Morgan Freeman be Sloane, man, what if we had like James Earl Jones being Sloane? Like, I know that it doesn't perfectly work, but still, wouldn't that have been interesting to just have like James Earl Jones be like, he's not a Jedi yet. He's not a fraternity of assassin yet. Yeah, freaking, that is some Star Wars stuff there. And when I saw this the very first time, I'm like, no way, man. Like, yeah, when I guess you really start to see from a perspective, we really have it to where Cross was really going out of his way to not really go on and try to kill Wesley. It seems like he was just trying to get him away from all these people. I'm like, oh my god, what a turn of events. So as Cross is telling Wesley that he is his daddy, we have Wesley going to Fox and try and like, hey, like, is he telling the truth? Fox is just like, yes, everything that we told you was a lie. Boo-hoo for you. So because we of course have Sloane that gave Fox the kill order for Wesley Gibson as she is to leave to go on this mission. So Fox is going to Wesley here, and Wesley is to break this glass to have both Wesley and his dad kind of just fall. So Pecorski is to go and take Wesley back to Cross's home to say that Cross was always just a snapshot away, and that he always loved Wesley, and he was always there for him when he never knew. So because Wesley is to realize that right across uh, the train tracks, of course, is to be Wesley's like place, his apartment. And he's like, "Oh my god!" Like my dad was like there the whole time, going and finding all these pictures of me, either weirdly stalking me and taking these pictures, or just going on and like finding pictures somehow or another. So we have it to where Pitworski is telling Wesley that, like, hey, like, Cross never wanted this life for you, and so, like, here's a plane ticket for you to just leave the country, to get out of here. And so Wesley's just like, well, no, like, I'm gonna go on and get even with these guys that had lied to me. Because Wesley is to go on and say that the choices of who were to get killed was to supposedly be left by fate. But Pitworski is to go on and say that, yeah, like, when really looking at it, every single person at some point was going to get picked. And so Sloan was to decide to go and make his own path or make his own choices instead of having fate decide. And so that was to leave us to having Wesley now going on and saying, it's like, well, since they're just going to manufacture their kills, I'm going to manufacture a way to kill all of these people by coming up with this master plan to, of course, introduce peanut butter and a number of other things to get all these rats to go into this garbage truck, and have them all go on and be laced with all these bombs so I can come into this textile facility and just blow this place up. So we have Wesley that goes and crashes through this building and is to have all these rats just make their way through this place. We have a bunch of like the repairman and a bunch of other guys just kind of chucking these rats, kind of not really understanding what's going on. So we go on and we have this building that is starting to explode because of these rat bombs. So we go on, we have Wesley that is to break through this big massive thing of glass, like supposedly Mr. X was in the beginning of this, which I honestly love that visual. Like, man, I wish there would be like other movies that would go on and try to do that visual, because man, does that look cool. How we have this like glass being broken, like, and have this body kind of being like pushed through it is kind of a cool looking thing, but I'm sure is really complicated to try to consistently try to pull off. Like the whole like recovery, like baths where we'd go on and have these characters kind of break through this thing and have all these pieces just kind of like chuck and fall and whatever, which is still kind of a really cool looking thing to see in this film. So Wesley breaks through this glass and is now going on and just running like full sprint, just running through all of these characters. And when he is to start running out of bullets, he is to have one of these guys just start like dropping their gun, and he catches it. And we just go on and can just continue to have him just like having all these guns coming flying out of people's hands, and he's grabbing them, and he's continuing to just run more and more and more, to the point of all of a sudden the repairman is to try and go and attack Wesley. And so Wesley goes and punches up the repairman, and then shoots into the repairman's mouth, and is going and using the repairman as a human shield as he's still like firing away through this guy's like mouth basically, and we have this huge lavish like fight out scene, which was so cool. As he just racing through all of this, just killing all these number of people. So we go on and have Wesley, who's to go and have to take down the butcher, and so we have to where the butcher is slicing through Wesley, and so Wesley's to have to try to figure out and determine where exactly the butcher is, and so we go on and have Wesley at some point get the better of this butcher, to where we have Wesley who gets one of the knife pieces into his gun, and so Wesley is to shoot this gun piece and is to stab into the butcher, to where Wesley kicks this piece to go through the butcher's heart, and so he's like kind of looking back at this one piece, and so the butcher is to kind of fall over and die supposedly. So Wesley then pushes on to go and find Sloane, because of course he's screaming for him. So we of course have Sloane and the gunsmith and Fox and a number of these other guys who are lining up wanting to go and take out Wesley. And so Wesley is now telling everybody how Sloane was to manufacture all of these kills, and how everything that Sloane is really doing is all just a lie. And Sloane is to just go on and say, it's like, well, yes, he's telling you the truth, because Sloane was to go on and find out eventually that every single name was to at some point come up. That Fox's name was to come up. The gunsmith was to come up. Every single person in that room was to come up. So we of course have Sloane that's telling everybody, it's like, well, hey, like, we can go on and forget about the code and kill this and go on to reach heights that the fraternity of assassins could only have dreamed of. Like, we could be like gods, and so on and so forth. So Sloane is to walk off, and the gunsmith is saying, like, well, F the code. So we have Fox, who is to curve her gun, or curve her bullet, to kill every single person that, of course, is to be working with the gunsmith and her. And then she is to toss her gun to Wesley and is to just kind of prepare herself to take this bullet in the temple, because technically she was also to at some point need to be killed here. So Wesley is going on and is desperately trying to figure out where Sloane had ran off to. So we go and we of course have Sloane, who's running off, and there's nothing of course that Wesley can do. So we just have it to where supposedly Wesley, instead of being this assassin, is of course to go on and to supposedly go back to be hired to do another cubicle job where he's going and Googling himself. And so all of a sudden we have Sloane, who is to appear and say, it's like, oh, like, you still don't know who you really are. So Wesley's going on and mentioning that, like, this is not what I wanted, this is not how I wanted to spend my life, this is not yada 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 yada. And once Sloane is to go on and like, oh, you're still like trying to find yourself, right? And then we have of course Wesley, who's like, and this is not me, I am not this cubicle person anymore. And so we find out that this person is to turn around portraying that he's Wesley Gibson, but he's not. He's just some decoy. And so Sloane is like, mother, and so Wesley goes and is to realize that there is a X to, of course, mark the spot here, and Sloane is to be killed. And so Wesley is to perfect this impossible shot that his father was to go on and do. Now he is able to do and kill Sloane here. And so we have this reverse thing of how this whole bullet came to be. And Wesley's going on and saying, like, well, like, what have you done lately? And then all of a sudden the movie's end. And like, yeah, woo! Like, he got the guy in the end. Like, it took some doing. It took some time and it took some figuring out. But he was to, of course, go on and do all of this. So, speaking of doing all this, if there's something that I probably forgot while I was doing all this, because I'm sure there was some complexities and there was some stuff that I didn't go on and mention or go in more in thorough in depth about, I'm sure there's some one-liners that people are to love from this movie, and it was to be the one thing that I didn't go out of my way to say at some point. But other than that, yeah, really enjoy this movie, but I think I also want to enjoy my way out of here so I can go on and do other videos for today. So yeah, like, this probably won't actually go out the day of which that I am going and probably doing it. I think I'm going to save this one for an extra little thing, unless I have the inability or the strength left into me to do another one of these reviews. And then so this will probably actually go out on the actual day that I put it out. Uh, but yeah, we'll see. We'll figure that out. Because I'm still gonna possibly do two more other reviews that will actually go out for today that I think are to just be shows. I think so. We'll see about that. Especially when I have to go into the Book of Boba Fett. Let's see how awake I will be. Because I'm already just kind of like cleaning my eyes, so to speak. So, with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy. Quick rebuttal. After I was to think about it, I'm not really awake. My apologies. Because one thing that I had forgotten about, and I realized this, is the whole like bulletproof limo scene. I had completely forgotten about that. Because yeah, I was going on, and I just immediately woke up and like I was going and editing things together. I'm like, oh my god, did I completely forget about this scene in this movie? Uh, so here it is now. Wesley's going on and still needing to learn how to murder and kill people. So we have Wesley at one point who is to be given this job to go and kill this guy in this limo. We go on, we have Wesley find out that this limo is actually bulletproof. Wesley tries to shoot through the glass and it doesn't work. The guy is just kind of laughing at this guy. Wesley all of a sudden realizes that it seems like this guy's limo's roof or kind of sunroof is to be open. And so Wesley goes on and takes this opportunity to weirdly signal at Fox for her to go on and use her car as some kind of ramp for him to go on and flip his car to go and shoot this guy in midair and go on and say, I'm sorry. And then, of course, he ends up getting shot in the chest, and Wesley flips his car back over and is to drive on out with the victory of course, killing this assassin. So, with that said, hopefully that's all covered. Plus, really, I probably would have gone back and covered it if I didn't have all these things to just kind of fuse together anyways. I just would have left it be the way it was. Uh, if there's anything else I probably had forgotten about this movie, because I'm sure there has, because there's a lot of details going on with this film, let me know in the comments below. But I'm going to get out of here so I can go back to either resting or putting clips together and so on and so forth. So I'm going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.